Dipnetting is a word most children would have never heard had it not been for Williams Lake Indian Band member Willie Sellars and artist Kevin Easthope.
The book is about a young boy who gets to go dip net fishing with his dad and grandpa for the first time. That whole process from the preparation to going to the trip out to the river, to the act of catching the fish and the climax of the story, to the hard work starting and bringing the fish home to be prepared for winter and drying and packaging.
In fact, the duo joined forces and published their very first book, Dipnetting with Dad, when they saw a lack of First Nations children's books.
The biggest reason why I wanted to make this book was because there isn't much First Nations literature out there, and I read to my children a lot. I have two kids, 4 and 6 years old, Cash and Mila, and it's tough to find a good First Nations book out there. You know, one that's going to teach them about interior BC First Nations and give them some good life lessons along the way.
The book provides a much-needed glimpse into the First Nations culture and daily lives.
I think it's pretty important because a lot of that stuff is fallen by the wayside. The good thing is to give those First Nation kids something positive to look back on and feel proud about in their community. You look at the kids around this area, and dip netting is a big part of, it's not only a big part of the way I live, but it's a big part of the way everyone lives around here. Everyone knows fish and everyone knows fishing, so for them to have a book about something in their area will give them more of that sense of pride about where they came from if they were to move away or when they grow up to bring it to their kids.
Dip netting is a form of fishing mastered by the First Nations people, and for Willie, the traditional technique has now become second nature.
I think the goal was when we were doing this book, I wanted to do it about something that I know best. And there's only a couple of things that I know best, and dip netting is one of them. I spend the majority of my summers down at the river. I've grown up around it. I've been handling fish my entire life, been eating fish. It made sense that our first book was about dip netting.
Not only does the book offer valuable information and education, but it's also full of action-packed illustrations that capture audiences of all ages.
Well, initially, I think I was thinking more of a not as a three-dimensional image, more of a flatter, more cardboard cutout looking book. But what I ended up deciding to do was I wanted to make it like the characters were popping off the page. So something with lots of action, something that pops off the page at you. I want things to be right up close and personal so the kids really feel like they're right there at the edge of the river with their mom or their dad, experiencing that like they're there themselves.
But surprisingly, both Willie and Kevin had no intentions of publishing a book. In fact, at first, it was just a project between the two of them.
It's not something that we had even really thought about when we first started on the project. It was something that we were going to put on the mantle. You know, like how cool would it be for a book that's going to live forever, live way past me, to be like sitting on the mantle. So I pictured like this really beautiful marble mantle with a book on top of it, even though that's not what I have in my house, but it's what I was envisioning. And then once we started getting the feedback and the steam started picking up, and it started to become a reality that, hey, maybe we could get it published, maybe we should bring this to a publisher. And
initially, it was very intimidating to think about, for sure. Willie had approached me, had asked me if I was interested in the project, and work was so busy at the time, and the idea kind of scared me off a little bit. So initially I was a little bit hesitant to accept the project, and then he came back to me later and we talked about it a little bit more, and I was hooked from that point on.
From there, everything picked up, and soon the talented team were offered publishing deals.
It's the first time I've had the opportunity that my artwork is going to hopefully span across a very large audience as opposed to the smaller audiences with my independent work. So it feels fantastic to see the smiles, to see the laughs, to see how engaged they are in what I've made on paper. Is just it really makes me feel like the time I spent was worthwhile, for sure, because they're connecting with it.
it's exciting. It brought back lots of great memories. Like the first thing that came to my mind right away was you know, the first time that I had a dip net in my net and my dad was standing behind me, and just remembering like how heavy that fish was and how hard it was to get him into the pit. I had to hand the net off to my dad, explaining how dip netting works and the act of it, and bringing people down to the river. They can, I guess, experience just how tough of a fishing experience it is, but how cool of a fishing experience it is.
The very talented duo hopes their book will not only be loved by all families and little ones, but that the work and dedication put in inspires others to follow.
You can imagine, I'd like to say we're going to have another 1 or 2 books out by then. I guess we'll see how this book does. It was a really fun project, and we'll see where it brings us. But I think telling any young kid out there, or even any young adult or old adult, it's never too late to start a process, and honestly, sky's the limit.
I hope that they can relate to the main character, the son, really feel like it's them that's going on this adventure from start to finish, and hopefully after that they want to spend more time with their families and go on their own adventures.